prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Win. This is our 6th episode. Today we'll be going over roster cuts and over-unders for the season and just talking about our predictions. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafur. I'm Ted Nguyen, and this is the Just Win podcast. Let's go into roster cut downs. Any surprises or anything that, caught you guys off guard?
I didn't think so. I mean, I guess maybe the receivers, were a little bit of a surprise. But again, these aren't big names or anything. But they cut Jalen Guyton and Christian Wilkerson for a couple of young guys. Tyreek McAllister, who had a big game last Friday night. And also Ramel Keaton from Tennessee, undrafted rookie. So those guys played well against the 49ers, and they were rewarded with a roster spot.
Yeah, I mean, they got rid of, or didn't get rid of, but they released a couple veterans. Jalen Guyton, who, played under Tom Telesco with the Chargers, and then Christian Wilkerson, who's been around for a couple of years. But they signed both of those guys back to the practice squad. And, as always with these initial 53-man rosters, there can be some movement throughout the season. So, if McAllister and Keaton don't perform, you could easily see, Guyton or Wilkerson get bumped up. And so all that is fluid, but they ended up keeping all those guys in the building. Just came down to who made the roster. I think for me, keeping 7 linebackers was kind of interesting. This is a lot, especially for a team that mostly operates out of nickel. I think on one hand, that shows the importance of special teams increasing the new kickoff rule. They need more guys that can, serve as not that they didn't need them before, but just with the rate of kickoffs, like they're going to need more bodies that can contribute in that area. And then also, Tommy Eichenberg's been out for a little bit with a lower leg injury that they haven't really given us a whole bunch of details about, and so that might have played into that as well. Maybe keeping some extra linebackers' bodies for depth, but we also had a couple young guys that stepped up that probably weren't expected going into training camp. The biggest one, Amari Gaynor, a drafted free agent coming in out of North Carolina. He was, I think, that last game against the 49ers, he probably had the best day of anybody next to McAllister. He played 90-plus snaps on defense and special teams, and he really came on strong, I thought. Got better as his training camp, went along. I think Vic would agree with that as well. And that's probably the position that stood out to me.
Yeah, with Gaynor, like Pierce mentioned today, when he first walked in the building, day one back in the spring, a good-looking kid as far as the prospect. He has the size, speed, and everything you want to see. A linebacker looks the part, and didn't have a lot of success in college. He had 2 stops, but I think here he showed his range, athletic ability, made some nice pass breakups. A guy who has a lot of upside, so they're pretty excited about him. And I think one other name we should probably mention is Byron Young was let go. Well, 3rd-round pick just a year ago. It's kind of it's kind of a quick hook, but it's a new regime. He didn't play well at all last year. Made strides this offseason, got in better shape. I think he was a new focus. He said himself he was a little entitled last year. Kind of felt like he maybe thought he belonged when really should have worked harder, but it wasn't enough. They decided to move on from him. Yeah, it's definitely a quick hook for a guy who was a 3rd-round pick just a year ago.
Yeah, it seems like the Raiders just needed some guys that they could put in a rotation that could help with the run defense. I mean, it was pretty bad. I know you asked Antonio Pierce about the run defense, and he seemed like, it was a concern and a focal point, even though, the first string defense didn't perform well against the run. The second, third string defense didn't perform against the run. What do you think about Antonio Pierce's answer to you when you asked him about it?
Yeah, I think I get it. There's definitely it's hard because preseason you don't want to take it too seriously, obviously, because it's not. Teams aren't really running their true schemes. You got guys not really in the spots they're going to be in, and even the first team defense I thought looked okay. So I'm still not too concerned with the run defense. Maybe I'm being naive, but we'll see. I guess come week 1. But the parts are all there. I think you mentioned the linebackers are pretty strong. They got a good defensive front. I think there's some backups, so I think they should be fine in terms of on paper. And I guess he said that in that last game, the starters on the field could watch what was going wrong as far as the fits and stuff. So maybe that'll help them as far as processing what they have to do for the next game. But, yeah, he's a little concerned. I'm not really concerned, and I'm not sure where Tashan sits.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit concerning. I think, again, they weren't good against the run last year. And, they obviously had a big personnel change on the defensive line with Christian Wilkins coming in. And, they would hope that he would elevate the run defense. And, we haven't seen him play much, and so I'm sure over the course of a full game, he can make more of a difference than the second and third string guys they had out there. I think they feel pretty good about their linebackers. Don Diablo, he's a lighter linebacker, and so he's more of a, I don't want to say coverage linebacker, but he's not somebody you want necessarily taking on a guard or something of that nature. He's down around in the 220s. And Malcolm Coates, he's a lighter defensive end too, and he's gotten better against the run, but he's still not like Maxx Crosby level, of course, defending the run. And so there's a couple spots along with their depth on the interior defensive line that could give you some cause for concern. But I think as long as they're at least average against the run, it shouldn't be too big of an issue. You just can't be It can't be a weakness for them. Otherwise, teams are just gonna exploit that over and over.
Yeah, I mean they have to get third and long for them to really get into their pass rush mode and really unlock Wilkins and Crosby. And Wilkins is a guy that has gotten better against the run. It was a weakness, I think, when he entered the league, but he's really kind of turned into a strength, similar to Maxx Crosby. I don't think he's that sort of impact player against the run like Crosby is, but he is pretty good now. But I just think the problem with the preseason is the defensive tackles were just way too easy to double team. John Jenkins is supposed to be a guy in a rotation that kind of holds up, and then after him, I think that they really need to find a guy, which is why they signed. Let's try to say his name, Laulu. Am I saying it right? Oh man,
Sure.
Yeah, it's close enough, Joe.
That was great. That was great job.
I grew up around Polynesians too, so they probably hate me for this, but
Wow.
I'm not saying it right. But I think that's why they needed a guy that they just plug into rotation and at least contribute to the run defense. I think that was a concern entering the season.
Yeah, I mean, like Jonah Lulu, the guy they signed from the Colts, he was a 7th round pick this year, and he's a Las Vegas native. And Antonio Pierce said they noticed him because they had I guess they have like a local day before the draft where they bring in prospects who are from Las Vegas and the surrounding areas. And they had some interest in drafting him in the 7th round before the Colts grabbed him, but he's really more of like a pass rush kind of guy. Like he was a former edge rusher in college. Yeah, he started out at Hawaii and transferred to Oklahoma. They think he's more of a 3 technique type. So, and he's a fifth defensive tackle in the rotation, 4th or 5th. So I don't know how much he's going to play, but I think he's more of a guy that brings a little bit more pass rush juice. I think the issue with Byron Young is he wasn't really doing either for him. He was getting pushed back in the run game, and he wasn't really offering much upside in terms of pass rush. And so, they went into the decision of them basically swapping those 2 players, even though, it seems like a loss on paper losing a 3rd round pick for a 7th round pick, but that guy they believe can make more of an impact, and it makes sense to do it.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely smaller for a defensive tackle, but I think he's a guy that wins on penetration. He's not going to be like a nose tackle, but I did watch him, and I thought he did hold up against the run pretty well just as a penetrator. So we'll see.
They also
Yeah,
have Nesta J. Silvera also on the roster. He made the roster this year, so he's a guy who's gotten a little better over the last year or so, and a guy who I talked to him the other day, and I didn't know he refers to himself in the 3rd person. He's Ness, so Ness is going to have the impact he thinks this year. So let's see how that happens.
That's the AP influence right there, man.
It
You
is.
really just start talking about yourself in 3rd person.
I'm all about it, man. Vic says he likes that move. It's good.
I mean, you got the
That's like
V
a
hat on.
flex
You're already
move, right?
halfway there. You
Back
got
it up.
Good, man.
you're already halfway there.
Halfway there.
Yeah,
What's
and
next?
for the YouTube audience, Vic's got his own name on his hat right now. He's got the V for Vic, so 3rd person. You got your own logo on.
It's a
You're
Vanderbilt
flexing
hat
right now.
so I'm flexing. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
A little conceited.
A little bit.
But speaking of the waiver claims, they picked up another safety kind of nickel hybrid. Thomas, the rookie Harper Thomas. He's coming in from Notre Dame, and they kind of wanted some more depth at safety. I think that was a position that Vic pointed out is really not looking too good in the preseason. The backup safeties were struggling a little bit, so gives them some more depth there. They had to put Trey Taylor on short-term IR, so he'll be eligible to return after the first 4 games. But given he's going to be out for a little bit, they brought him in, to kind of help compete and add some depth there. And then they signed, cornerback Darnay Holmes yesterday as well. He's more of he kind of plays inside and outside, special teams guy, some more depth. Because Brandon Facyson got placed on IR as well, so he's going to be out through the first 4 games. So saw some shuffling on the back end as well. I think the secondary, we've mostly talked about it as a strength this offseason and in training camp. They've been playing really well as a starting unit, but the depth has been kind of questionable, and so they tried to address both of those spots.
And Holmes is not only a former Patrick Graham guy with the Giants, he's also an Antonio Pierce guy. He was his coach 7-on-7 in Calabasas at 13 years old. So they go way back. So a guy who thinks it might be a piece for them this year to help out in the back end.
So who's the backup nickel right now? Are they going into the season with Pau Mao as the
I think
it's Holmes.
It'll be Holmes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got
and like if they have an injury to the outside, it probably would be. I think they would probably move Hobbs outside more so than probably sticking Holmes out there. So that is a spot where they with Faison going on IR and DeCamerion Richardson, he had a strong training camp, but I think he's pretty raw, and I think he might need another year to develop before he's ready to step in there. So I think they would try to shuffle the veterans around a little bit before they just toss the rookie out there.
Like Tashan mentioned with DeCamerion, I think he's got the size you want in the cornerback. He has a skill set. I think he's a little light right now. Like in some of the running plays at training camp, he'd get moved like to the next field over. Like he wouldn't get blocked, he'd be like still going backwards. So I just think it's a lot to ask for a young guy in the NFL. So I think he needs some time in the weight room and just more time learning the defense. But he's got some of the things you want in a young guy. So I think they like him, but like just not ready to play quite yet. So if you need a veteran guy, you can always add one more also.
I mean, Holmes is 5th year in the league, so he's a veteran too. So he can play inside, outside. They hope they don't have that many injuries.
And speaking of injuries, any Brock Bauer updates?
Yeah, we asked Pierce today. He said he feels really good about him being ready for the opener. It's been like 2 weeks now since he's been out there with his foot injury, which they say is it's a precautionary thing, but it's been a while. But Pierce says no reason to be concerned. If you draft him in fantasy, you can hold on to him and hope things work out for you.
Yeah, it seems like they're not too worried about it. The fans are freaking out a little bit, which makes sense. I mean, they had the first round pick last year, ended up having a foot injury, and we saw that happen with his rookie season, how that played out. So I get it, but they think he'll be ready to go and be out there. Besides him, though, it sounds like just based on Antonio Pierce's body language and the way he talked about, like Jackson Powers-Johnson probably won't be ready to play week 1. As he's working back from his concussion, he's trying to get back into football shape. They won't practice. They had practice today, but they won't practice again until Wednesday, and that's only a handful of practices before the season opener against the Chargers. And I think they're probably going to lean on Cody Whitehair there at left guard. We'll see if Powers Johnson's active or not. I don't know if they made that decision, but pretty certain he's not going to start. So he's still working his way back as well.
All right, we got Antonio Pierce body language analysis. That's insight you only get from this podcast.
Yeah, man, you get a little pause and look up at the sky, think about it for a little bit. It's like, it's like, all right, well, it's probably not happening, but we'll see.
Okay, so we're gonna get into our over/unders episode. We do this to preview the season, every season for the last few years, where we're gonna look at the Vegas over/under lines on some of the Raiders' key players and give our prediction. So first, we're going to start with Gardner Minshew, 3,400 yards. Tashan, why don't you start off? Over or under?
I'll go under. I think part of it is because I think both quarterbacks are going to end up starting multiple games this year, whether that's due to injury or performance. I think Aiden O'Connell will play at some point. As we've talked about, I know the fans are getting on this for being negative, but I just don't think Minshew is that good of a quarterback. I mean, I think he's been pretty consistently below average throughout his career. And our Mike Sando at The Athletic, he has quarterback tiers that he does every year where he polls league executives and a bunch of other people to try to put together, kind of coherent rankings of quarterbacks. I think Minshew came in at 25th, which is below average, which we've been saying. So I think that's, how the league views him. And, I think that based on the performance that we've seen so far between him, his games, preseason games and training camp, that's about what I expected. So, and I think O'Connell will play as well. And I think this offense is going to be a little bit more run first by nature, based on Luke Getsy's history as offensive coordinator. So I think he falls short of that 3,400 mark.
I am Mr. Positive on the other hand, so I'm going to say he goes over. I've caught the Minshew mania when I'll get the mullet at some point soon, but I just think these are probably the best receiving tools he's had. I think And also, when obviously he had a rough camp, they both did, and rough preseason. But I do get the sense of watching him and looking at his highlights from the past time in the NFL. He may be one of those guys who's more of a game player than the practice guy. I'm not sure he's really going to show you all he can do as far as playmaking ability in practice. So I think he's been good enough to hold on to the job. I don't know what that means as far as wins and losses, but I think he'll be okay. So I think he'll get over that number and kind of hold on to the job all year long.
Yeah, I'm going to say under. I think Aiden O'Connell is actually a better fit for this offense. Who they're going to play with more 12 personnel. They're going to go more play action, timing passes. Minshew's a guy, air raid guy that plays a little bit better and a spread type of offense. He's not going to have Shane Steichen, who I think is an elite play caller, calling plays for him this year. So I think O'Connell's going to play at some point. So I don't think he's going to reach that 3,400 yard mark.
I want to hear more about Vic's optimism. What would change between the last 5 podcasts and this one? What's got you more juice?
No, I mean, 3,400 is not a big number. I mean, I set the number low for a reason. He's not going to have a great year. I'm saying he's got to survive as a starter. I just think they have enough in terms of their running game, be able to do some play action. I think that's kind of his strength. That's why, in my mind, it might be a better fit than Aiden is because of the play action stuff. I think he does that better than Aiden does. And again, I think Brock Bowers is going to have a good year. I think Davante Adams has got a lot to prove. Yeah, if he wants to. So I just think there's enough there offensively where he can. How to say this? Not screw things up. I think he knows he can't turn the ball over, and still he tries to sometimes to make the plays he shouldn't make. But I think he'll try and not do that. I just think that there's enough here to have enough success. I mean, last year I want to say they averaged 19 points a game last year, so which is pretty bad. So if they can get to 22 or 23, I think they'll be okay as far as be able to win some games. I think that'll be enough for him to hold on to his job. So I'm not saying I'm super optimistic and he's going to be the next Switch Gannon as far as being a guy who comes in at the at the bottom of his career and kind of takes a miraculous rise up. But I think he'll be good enough to hold on to the job and get to that number.
Yeah, when it comes to the scheme fail, I mean, like the Raiders do feel like while he is a guy that ad-libs and kind of goes off script a little bit, that he can fit within the scheme. We've seen quarterbacks in that sort of McCarthy, Shanahan system that don't exactly just do what they're told. I mean, I'm not saying that he's this caliber guy, but you see, like Brock Purdy, sometimes with the 49ers, like he does a lot of that ad-lib and stuff where he's just kind of running around and he chucks the ball up. I mean, we saw that against the Raiders in the preseason last week where he had that kind of fluky completion to George Kittle. So it's like, you don't have to be a complete robot. There's still room to do the things that Minshew likes to do. You just can't go all the way in, like you said, to where he puts the ball at risk and is unnecessary. And so I feel like he knows how to toe that line, and I guess we'll see how that goes when the season starts.
That is a higher line than I would expect because I was peeking at the lines yesterday, preparing for this, and there was some more established names that were pretty like 3,500, 3,600 yards over under. So it's a curiously high line, I think.
Well, the reason I said that was because I think last year he had 33-40, I want to say, with the Colts. He didn't start off as a starter. He played most of the year. So I just did a little more than last year, but it wasn't a highly scientific process that I took. I had spent hours of time crunching the numbers. I looked and I'm like, okay. But yeah, so I'm not saying it's a great line, but it's the one.
Oh, you set these lines. I thought you got them from betting websites.
Oh man, these are Vic's picks right here.
Okay.
There are no Gardner Minshew lines anywhere on the internet or in the world. People don't care enough. So this is our creation.
Okay. All right. Zamir White, 900 rushing yards.
I'll go first. I'll say, again, I'm Mr. Positive, so I'm saying over. I think Zamir's looked fine. I think he's going to be the guy who gets most of the carries, and also some on third down as well. I think he won't be a guy who totally is always off the field third down. I think he's in great shape. He's motivated. He did well last year in the short audition. I think they have faith in him. They're not they're not positive he's going to be the guy, but I think they have a good feeling about it. He'll get first crack. I think Madison's kind of the insurance policy. But yeah, I think Zamir's shown everything to me that I need to see where he can be a good running back in the NFL.
I'm going to go over as well. I think Zamir, I was really impressed by what he did the last 4 games last season. I know it's a small sample size, but he was really productive. I mean, that Chiefs win on Christmas Day, I mean, it was on his back. I mean, didn't have a completed pass in 3 quarters and still won. He broke that long run to seal it at the end there. But, I think he's, pretty promising as a rusher. He bulked up this offseason, added some more muscle and strength. Seems like he's, developed when it comes to grasping the offensive scheme throughout the offseason. And so, I know that Tom Telesco by nature kind of builds the roster with more of a running back by committee approach. But like you said, Vic, I think, barring injury or, him just not performing well, I think they'll mostly lean on Zamir White when it comes to the carry split this season. And Alexander Madison come in and spell him. They're not really going to be designing too many handoffs to Amir Abdullah or Dylan Labe. I think that Labe hype train has kind of cooled off a little bit since earlier in training camp. And so it should be Zamir's show, and I think they're going to run the ball a lot. It's what Getsy's done in the past. And so I think he'll have plenty of opportunity. And, I think he'll get 1,000 yards this season. And, maybe that shows he can be the guy moving forward.
Yeah, I have some questions about. I still have some questions about how elusive he is as far as his ability to break tackles. But if he's going to be the main ball carrier in this offense and he stays healthy, I think he should be able to pass 900 yards. So I'll go over on Zamir.
Yeah, and I think, with them, it sounds like the offensive line, Andre James spoke earlier this week, it seems like they enjoy this zone-based blocking scheme that they're using a little bit more than the combination scheme they were using under McDaniels. He said it was more similar to what they were running under John Gruden. And, we saw, obviously, Josh Jacobs have a lot of success in that system. Not saying that, Zamir is Josh Jacobs necessarily, but, if the offensive line is continuing to get healthier and they take a step forward and they're a better fit for this system, I think that'll go a long way towards helping Zamir as well. Hopefully he doesn't have to. I mean, really that Josh Jacobs season when he led the league in rushing, like there's so many times where he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. That's not ideal. You don't want your running back getting hit in the backfield on average. So, in the Raiders' ideal world, Zamir White will have some clear lanes to run. And so even if he isn't as elusive or explosive or can break as many tackles, which I think he can. I mean, I think he's a big physical running back. So it may not be juking somebody, but I think he can run some people over. So I think he'll be good enough in that area.
All right, so we're all over on Zamir White. Davante Adams, 9.5 touchdowns.
I got
The
the
Raiders
under.
uniform?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got the under. He had 8 last year. I know he had big numbers the previous 3 years, but I think he'll still be in that 8 or 9 range. Because I think they're going to have these 2 tight ends be a lot of be very attractive in the red zone. I think both Mayer and Bowers will get a lot of action down there. I think also they got Jacoby Myers and they got Trey Tucker, so there's a lot of balls to go around. So I'll say Davante goes under. So still's a good year. Like you said, I'm not sure if it's going to be spent all the time in the silver and black, but I think he'll get to 9. So I'll say under.
I'm going to go over. I think they're going to force feed him in the red zone to keep him happy. And I think the 2 tight ends will kind of help take attention away from him. You're going to have to put that extra safety in the box. It'll be harder to double team him. So I think they're going to make it a point to get him the ball. And I think the 2 tight end sets should kind of, or the 2 tight end threat should help out him in the red zone.
Yeah, I think I'll go under with Vic. I think with them running the ball a good amount this year, and also I just don't have a whole lot of faith in their quarterback play. I don't know how many passing touchdowns there's going to be to go around. But also, like you said, I mean, they have a lot of options. It's not just Adams, but Bowers, Mayer, Tucker, Myers. Of course, the running backs are going to be involved in the passing game as well. And so, I mean, I guess if Minshew throws 40 touchdowns or something this year, then, maybe everybody can eat all together. But I think it's going to be pretty divvied up. I still think Davante, has a great year. Like, you don't have to have a bunch of touchdowns necessarily. I think he's going to do what he usually does in terms of catches and yards and draw a lot of attention. And so I don't think, if he has 9 touchdowns, it's a bad year or anything like that. But I think he'll go under this year.
All right, Maxx Crosby, 13.5 sacks, over under.
I'll take the under. I think it should be close. I mean, obviously, he had 14.5 last year, I want to say, and you might think that Wilkins will help him get more because of the lack of double teams, but Wilkins is also going to eat as well. I think he'll get some sacks also, and I think Malcolm Kuntz is going to be really maybe the guy who benefits the most from those 2 guys being out there. So I think 13.5 is it's a good number. So I say he comes just under, but obviously still a great year for a great player who just seems to get better every year. So nothing against Max, but I'll take the under.
I think I'm gonna go over. I think he's set up for a big year if he stays healthy. I think he has the defensive line to help him. I think the secondary could be better than people think and could hold up in coverage. So this might be the best secondary that he's had since being a Raider, right? I mean, as far as just being complete, at every spot.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a high bar. It's not a high bar at all.
yeah, it's not a high bar. So um, yeah, I think they'll give him that extra second or two, and I think those high pressure numbers are going to translate into 14 sacks this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I think something interesting in Antonio Pierce said was he mentioned how like Maxx Crosby plays 1,000 snaps every year, and I think they want to get that number down. But I think in a way, and he's already an efficient pass rusher, but I think that could help him be even more efficient. Like if he's not running himself into the ground, playing as many snaps as I think he played like 95% of the snaps last year, which is an insane number for a defensive end. So if Malcolm Coombs can step up and take on a bigger role, and as we mentioned, Christian Wilkins taking up that attention in the middle, that should open up things more for him. I think the defense as a whole was going to take a step forward this year, and I think obviously he's the best player on the defense, arguably the best player on the team, and I think he'll contend for the defensive player of the year race this year. So I think Max is going to have a pretty huge season.
Next, Tyree Wilson, last year's first round pick, over under at 3.5.
As we had last year, so I thought it was a good. I'm not sure how much he's going to play, but I think he'll be able to fall into more than 3.5 sacks. I think he'll be out there at some points and play inside, maybe some third down. So I'm going to give him over because I am Mr. Positive.
I'm gonna go over too. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 3.5. He'll get Pete playing time. On third down, he'll kick inside. I think early downs he might get more playing time than people think if they really need his size to help on the run defense on the edge. I still think he can get better. I'm not giving up on him yet.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Some people compare. I think a lot of Raider fans are like burnt by Clelin Ferrell, and I see some people making that comparison.
Cleveland.
Jesus
Cleveland,
Christ, man.
Cleveland Ferrell.
Have you ever said names before? Like, where do you get these names?
No, I just read them and write them, but no, I don't. I don't say it. But the difference is Tyree Wilson is an athlete. He has the rare tools that can hopefully translate if he learns moves and get better with pass rush plan and technique and things like that. And it has gotten better, but it's just not. The improvement isn't where you want it to be just yet. It's kind of incremental right now. So hopefully during the season, we can continue to see improvement from him. And I think we will. So I think he'll clear 3.5.
Yeah, I think I'll go over. I mean, you hope he could stumble his way into 4 sacks. I think we didn't see much from him in the preseason, but like using a lot of lineups, like if he's the guy on the line, like it may be harder for him to get back there. But if he's playing alongside Max and Christian, you would think he'd be getting more one-on-ones and be able to win in those situations, whether he's rushing from the inside or outside. And so, he's fully healthy. I know last year that was part of him getting off to a slow start. As you said, more experience, he can continue to improve. I don't think he's going to have like a huge breakout year or anything like that, but pick up a few sacks and contribute a little bit on the edge.
Man,
and
we're all in on
Bambi.
Tyree Wilson. What's that?
There was a defensive lineman that compared him to Bambi, I think, on the Raiders. One of his own teammates.
That was an old one from Malcolm Coombs a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Like last year when they drafted him, I think. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect comp. You ever see a baby deer to just come out, the limb, they got the long limbs, but it can't quite control them. I think that's what Tyree Wilson is, and hopefully he, just kind of grows into himself.
Man,
And
if you're drafting Bambi in the first round, you should get fired. Wait, never mind. I guess they did. Never mind. What's next? We're all in on Tyree. What else we got?
Yeah, we're all in on over 3.5. Team sacks over under 50. What was your prediction last year? You were over 60?
I said I was really being positive. I said 60, and I realized that was ridiculous. So I said 50, so I still didn't get there. But
you changed it like 8 times. You're giving zero credit. Credit for last year.
I was wrong anyway, so I don't get any credit. But I was way too high on him last year. But I was a big believer in someone who's no longer on the team.
Where did they end up last year? How many sacks did they have?
46.
46.
That's
Okay.
pretty good.
All right. So 50 is the line.
Yeah.
Over. I'll go over. I think with me thinking that Maxx is gonna have a big year. If Tyree has an okay year, I think Malcolm Kuntz is gonna keep getting better, and Christian Wilkins, with him making as much money as he's making, like I'm sure they're hopeful he gets somewhere around 10 sacks at least, most likely. So I think they'll go over 50. I think this is going to be a pretty good pass rushing unit. The starting four is really strong. We have some questions about their depth, I think on the interior and the edge. But I think between that starting defensive line, and then they have some versatile guys on the back end as well. I think we saw Robert Spillane have some success blitzing last year. Safeties, you bring in a guy like maybe Isaiah, pull him out, blitz off the edge. We've seen Jack Jones blitz before, so I think they're going to get a little bit creative. I think Patrick Graham, his third year with the Raiders, he's going to start trying more stuff and being a little bit more exotic than he's been in the past. And, I think they should be pretty good getting after the quarterback this year.
Yeah, we went over on Crosby and Tyree, so I'm going to say they're going to have to go for 50. Like I said, secondary should be better. Defensive line is better. I mean, they have to get to third and long, so hopefully they shore up the run defense a little bit. But, they got close to it last year. I think they could surpass it this year.
Yep. I got 60. That's my number again.
Ooh,
Going 60.
Back to 60.
We got mentioned Maxx and Tyree and Wilkins. I think Adam Butler wants to get a new contract. He said he'll be motivated. I think Spillane and Diablo could probably combine for like 5.5. So I like it. I think this defense definitely, if they're going to have a good season, it's going to be because of the defense and because of the pass rush. So why not put it on them and say 60?
All right.
I like it.
Team interception, 17.5 over under.
I'm going to go under.
Under? Question mark?
Question mark? I mean, I think they had 13.5 last year, I think. So I kind of try to put a little bump because of all the Jack Jones euphoria. I think Jack's going to have a good year, but I'm not sure if they have a lot of ball hawks back there besides Jack. So I think that's the thing bad. I think embarrassing about having 15 interceptions. So I'm going to say a little under. I'll say 15, so they fall short of that number.
Yeah, I'll go a little under. I mean, I just haven't seen a great Raiders intercepting secondary in a long time. So,
it's a new year, man. Come on now.
Say a little under.
You know what? I'm going over. Fuck it.
Ooh.
I think Jack Jones is gonna have a big year. I think Nate Hobbs is gonna stay healthy. He's a playmaker as well. I think Jacorian Bennett, I think he's gonna settle in. He might have some bumps along the way, but I think he'll settle into being a starting caliber cornerback for him this year. And I think really, the difference makers, I think the cornerbacks kind of showed what they could do as playmakers last year a little bit. But I think Trayvon Merrick is going to take a step forward this year, getting after the football. He was a player that in college, he had a ton of ball production. And that's why he ended up winning the Thorpe Award, was because of that, how many interceptions he had while he was at TCU. And I think, throughout his career, he's made a couple plays here and there, but you kind of always wanted a little bit more when it came to him making plays on the ball. But I was really impressed with him during training camp personally. Like, while both of those quarterbacks were struggling, often they were throwing picks to Trayvon Merritt, whether it was him staying on top of things down the field, coming up, playing man from the slot, covering over the middle. So I think he seems to be really comfortable and coming into his own, making that year 3 leap. And so I think they'll go over, man. I think they'll get 20-something interceptions, go along with 50-plus sacks, and make that leap as a defense to be in, top 5-7 unit.
Who leads them in interceptions?
So what?
Who's going to lead them in interceptions?
I'll go Jack Jones. But I think Trayvon Merrick will be right there behind him.
I think that's a good call on Trayvon. He's definitely a guy who's gotten better each of the last 2 years. And you see it now just on the field, talking to him, so much more confidence than he had. He was obviously a confident player in college. He was a big-time player there. But in terms of this level, definitely very confident. And that's a key part of having success as a guy in the secondary in the NFL. So he's got all the athletic ability in the world. And I think he's a guy who really feels like he's in the right spot and at the right time in the system. He's got a guy, Marcus Epps, who can trust, that can kind of interchange roles back and forth. So I think he's poised for a big season.
All right. So let's move into our AFC West preview. Let's start with the Chiefs, 11.5 wins.
I got the under just because I think they're going for a three-peat. So at the end, do they really care about regular season wins? Like they want. I mean, even Kelsey himself says he's going to really kind of focus in on being ready for the playoffs. I think there's not really. I don't think any competition as far as a threat to winning the division. So I think 10 or 11 wins would be good enough to win a division. So I have them at 11 wins and going just under the number.
Yeah, I think I feel about the same. I think I go under at 11. Obviously there's still a lot of value in getting that one seed, but they showed us they don't necessarily need that to win a Super Bowl. They would like it, I'm sure, but I think they have a little bit some question marks throughout the roster. I think cornerback on the defensive side, after losing L'Jarius Sneed, they don't really have a clear answer there who's going to step up and replace him. I know they have a lot of new receivers this year, and so seeing how all those guys fit together between Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, and I still don't think we fully know like what's going on with Rasheed Rice in his situation, like whether he's going to be able to play the whole season. I think they'll still be good. They'll still be the Chiefs, but I don't think they're necessarily going to have a dominant year in the regular season. So I see them. I say the same record, coming in at 11-6.
I think they go over because this is a loaded AFC, and I think they're going to try to go for that home seed. I don't think they want to go on all the road the entire time in the playoffs like they did last year. I think they improved their team. I think Donovan Smith was pretty bad at left tackle for them, and I think they drafted an upgrade in the third round, and Xavier Worthy is going to give them.
Say his name. Say his name.
I'm not going to try it.
Kingsley Suamatia.
Yeah, there you go.
Left tackle.
Sumatia. He,
Polly's gonna kick your ass, man. There's a lot of Polly Raiders fans, man. You're gonna tighten up.
He didn't allow one pressure in the preseason, just preseason, but he looked really athletic. I think and the bar wasn't very high to improve over how Donovan Smith played. I think Xavier Worthy is going to add to the receiving core. I think Marquise Brown is not a true number one, but he's better than what they had. So I think they're going to improve their protection. The receiving core is better. Defense might take a step back, but I still trust that they're going to get it done on that side of the ball. So I think it's an improved Chiefs team, and I think it's going to be tough competition to get that home field advantage. But I think they're going to go for it.
All right. Next with the Chargers, I think the number is 8.5.
8.5.
Really?
Who's gonna go first?
I'm going under. There's no doubt for me. Honestly, I think the Chargers. I think they might be like the worst team in the division. I think that might be the case. Like I know they made an upgraded head coach. Again, the bar is pretty low there, but I'm really shaky about their offense. Justin Herbert's coming back now. He's practicing. It looks like he's going to be able to play week one, coming off that foot injury that had him out for a little bit. But they don't really have their receiving core doesn't really move me. Like I'm not sure who their number one option is. I know they've invested a lot in the offensive line and picked up a couple running backs this offseason in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So they might run the ball a little bit better and be a little bit more balanced. But I still think they'll be like an average offense this year. And, we talk every year, I think, about the Chargers defense and how much talent they have. But, at some point, they got to show it. They have all these pieces, Derwin James and Khalil and Bosa, but then they always rank bottom 5 in the league in defense. And so, have a new DC and Jesse Minter, and they're, making that switch. But I think they'll still have some warts on defense. This team always seems to be injured in some way. So I'm going to go under. I don't think they'll make it to that 8.5 number.
Yeah, I'm going to go under 2. I think Jesse Minter's defense is going to take a little while to learn, so they're going to go through growing pains early in the season. They don't have a lot of depth, and Joey Bosa's hurt. He misses 10 games a season. Justin Herbert's coming into the season with a foot injury, and I don't think that's the type of injury that's just going to go away during the season. I think he's going to have to, really tough through it throughout the season. So that's going to affect them. Obviously, got rid of 2 good receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, and they're going to run. They're going to try to run the ball a lot, and sometimes it's hard to. I think it's hard to bet against Jim Harbaugh, who's been so consistent wherever he's been. But I just don't see them winning over 8.5. Maybe they get close just because Harbaugh's a great coach, but I think it's hard. It's gonna be hard to clear that 8.5 bar.
Yeah, it's a clean sweep. I also have the under. I think it's a new regime, new culture, all that stuff. It's going to take a while. You mentioned defensive stuff. I think in offense, they lost a lot of guys. I think their top receiving right now option is some guy named Lad McConkey, who's probably a good fantasy pick, but I wouldn't think he'd be a key guy who can help you win games in crunch time. So I think it's going to be a process. And I think there's really no reason why. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it's kind of a must-win game for the Raiders in the opener because I think they are ahead of schedule as far as the Chargers go, and they probably are a better team. That's a game you have to win, I think, next week. But I have under 8.5. I'm not sure it'll be close. I think they might be like a 6-win team, maybe. I think they're going to struggle a little bit, and I think at some point maybe they unload some of the veterans on defense to kind of help the rebuilding process. So we'll see.
All right. So last team before we get to the Raiders, Broncos 5.5 wins.
I think they'll go over. I don't think it'll be that bad. I think they're kind of a similar caliber team to the Chargers, like a six winish team. But I know they named Bo Nix their starting quarterback, and I think all of us were a little bit lukewarm on that pick with them drafting him as high as they did. But he did look pretty good in the preseason. Again, it's the preseason, but I think he's the guy that Sean Payton feels like a pretty good fit for his offense. And they have they're another team though that I don't really love their weapons. I mean, they traded away Jerry Jeudy this offseason. They cut Tim Patrick, and they didn't really make a huge upgrade there. I know they drafted Troy Franklin out of Oregon, but the weapons on offense are a little bit of a question mark to me. I think defensively, like they're another team that has a lot of talent, but for some reason under Vance Joseph, they haven't been able to put it together. At least last year, I know they got better towards the end of the year, but I think they'll be all right. Like I don't think they'll be like bottom of the barrel team, but I'll just go a little bit over, like a 6-win team.
I think I got the. I know I got the under. I think they're not very good. I think they may actually stink. I think defense is not very good. I think they lost some good guys there. I think the offense. I know Bo Nix had a good preseason, and people are optimistic, but it's different level when you get to the real games. I think he'll have some issues. I think he might be a guy long term. It could be the guy, but I think short term, I think there's going to be some growing pains. I know Sean Payton's a good coach, but he hasn't had a lot of success with quarterbacks other than Drew Brees. So I think we look at this preseason, and he's like, Bo Nix is doing great, and I fixed what's the kid's name from? I fixed Zach Wilson. He's great. I mean, I got to see it in a real game before I totally jump on the bandwagon. So I think they're going to have trouble this year scoring the ball, and bigger trouble stopping people from scoring. So I think they're pretty bad.
I'm going to go over. I think I'm going to give Sean Payton some credit, and I think it's going to be a second year in his system, and he didn't have a ton of success with guys after Drew Brees, but I mean these guys weren't that good, and he still got them to play at a pretty decent level. I thought what he did for Russell Wilson last year was pretty borderline miraculous to have him finish with that stat line. Just watching the way he played, but I think Sean Payton does have a knack for just playing to his quarterback strengths, and obviously he liked what he saw in Bo Nix making a huge gamble to reach for him in the first round. So I think he could build an offense around his skills. Bo Nix is like 35 years old already, so I don't know how much better he can get. So I think he should be able to perform pretty well in this system. And I think the Broncos offense is going to be better than people think. I just think Sean Payton's a really good play caller, and I think Vance Joseph is a really good coach too.
Man. All right, like he's a good play caller. He was a good play caller last year. We saw what their offense looked like. What about their offense?
Their offense was better than I thought it was going to be with Russell Wilson. So
Russell's a Hall of Famer, man. I think the other thing I have problems with is narrative about how he saw something in Bo Nix, took a chance on him. Dude, there's nobody else left. All the quarterbacks were gone. He had no choice. And now he's got to say, yeah, I saw something in that one practice, and I took 15 throws. I knew he was our guy. There's nobody else to take. So it was either Bo Nix or it was nothing. So I get it. I mean, I commend you if that's a chance you want to take, but don't tell me you saw something in a Senior Bowl practice on the side and like, that's my guy. There's nobody else to take. So congratulations. I hope it works out for you, but let's kind of save the revisionist history about what a great discovery you made in seeing Bo Nix.
I mean, I don't think Bo Nix is a very high ceiling. but I think Sean Payton could get him close to it, and I think that will probably be able to support a pretty decent offense, and so I'll go over on it, but we'll see. All right, Raiders 6.5 wins.
I'm gonna go 9-8. So I think it's an easy over. I think we talked about the defense. I think Minshew will be good enough. Yeah, I don't think they're going to contend for a playoff spot, but I think they'll be on that bubble for a little while. I think they'll be good enough to kind of keep Davante interested. Yeah, I think the defense is, like I said, for me, it's all the defense. I think they're going to be better than they were last year, and they ended the year pretty well last year. So I got 9 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think 9-8 is a pretty good benchmark for them to get to with the quarterback situation. Somehow, if Minshew plays better than expected, maybe 10 wins. But I mean, I just look at this team as like a team that's built to be a playoff contender with no quarterback. Like they lost their starting quarterback. So this is and Minshew has those high variance sways to his game where maybe if he does play at that high level for a stretch, then they could be in contention. So I'm going to be positive and say 9-8.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over, but I'm not as feeling good as you guys. I'm gonna go 7-10. I think the defense I think is gonna be really good, but I just don't really have a whole bunch of faith in the offense. Obviously I can be proven wrong, but I just think the quarterback situation, like, it hasn't looked good to me, like, since they got here, or at least since Minshew got here in March, and like I have to see that improve before I feel better about it. I think also, obviously Getsy coming over from the Bears, he has a lot to prove as offense coordinator as well to show that he can put together a good offense. Some offensive line questions as well. So I just think the offense is going to be a unit that holds this team back. I think the defense is going to be as good as advertised, but in today's NFL, you really got to be able to pull up points, especially in the AFC. It's just such a loaded conference that I think they settle in about 7 wins.
That's well said, man. Neil, go back and edit mine to 8 and 9. I'm gonna take mine down a notch. So go ahead and do a voiceover and make mine 8 and 9.
Well, I guess even on the low end, even because you guys both have more wins than me, but I think even if they go 7-10, like what that means for them moving forward, like I think it's fine. Like it's obviously a step back from last year, and that's not ideal. But I mean, it's a first year regime with Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco, and I think objectively looking at the situation, like they would never say it, but I think we all know like the quarterback of the future is like most likely not on this roster, and so that's always a caveat.
Most likely,
like it's like they're probably not here, so that's a caveat right there. And so I mean, they're going to get a chance to go out this offseason. This is one that's coming up, and make a move to go get their guy, whether that's in free agency or positioning themselves through the draft to do so. And so I don't think it has any sort of wide-ranging ramifications in terms of who's running the team. I do think something that could be interesting to see is like where do they stand at that trade deadline? I think that's going to be the pivot point of the season. Like, are they 5-4? Are they like competitive, or are they 2-7 or 3-6? And a certain guy might be questioning whether he wants to stick around moving forward. And so I think that week 10 mark, that trade deadline, I think that's going to be where we find out which direction this team's headed.
Yeah, I think that's why a good start is so important. I mean, I mentioned that game against the Chargers. That's a game that I think you really have to win because then week 2 you're at Baltimore. That's going to be hard. And then you come home. You got 2 home games against the Panthers and the Browns. Those are games I think you have to win pretty much to get yourself in a good spot for the rest of the year. So I think those first 4 games, you got to be at least 2-2, if not 3-1, or else things are going to get off the rails quick.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of interesting, like the way this team is built. It's like they are built to contend. They make moves like signing Christian Wilkins and getting themselves in position, but they just don't really have the quarterback situation to really put themselves there. And they're not bad enough to where they're going to lose and get into the top 10. So it's just kind of, when you're looking forward, it's just, that's why I make all these jokes about Dak Prescott, because like your goal as a franchise should be to get that quarterback and solidify things, but there's just no avenue towards a quarterback at this point. So yeah, it's just kind of a weird spot how the Raiders are built right now.
That's what we call a transition year, fellas. I think that's what this is.
Transition to what?
Transition to we'll see in the offseason, my boy. They got a lot of cap. They got $35 million in cap space that they can roll over to next year, so they'll have a shit ton of cap space. It's just a matter of the guy wants to come or not. And then through the draft, they may not be bad enough to have a top 10 pick, but they might be like 14th and can swing a trade to because there's not that many bad teams that need a quarterback. I think that's the part that, or at least that would probably take one. Like there's some teams that just drafted one, like the Panthers. Like they're not going to be drafting a quarterback next year, even if it goes really bad this year. So I think they'll be able to position themselves, whether it's through free agency or the draft, to be able to go get a guy if they end up needing a guy. Maybe we're all wrong and they win 10 games. Gardner Minshew's Rich Gannon 2.0. We'll see, but I don't think it's a doom and gloom situation. I think there's plenty of paths in the offseason to go get somebody.
Yeah, I think Telesco definitely is taking a kind of a long-term approach. We saw he hasn't made a lot of moves with the rest of that salary cap space. There are some spots he could have shored up if he really was making a push to make a playoff run this year, but he's taking a wait-and-see approach. I think that will they'll bear out. I think that's why they're on that bubble, and I think that's the kind of team they are. So they are in a weird spot, like you said, as far as not being quite good enough, and you need a quarterback to get over the hump, and so you're kind of stuck on the hump this season.
Yeah, well, so are you officially changing your prediction to eight wins now?
That's a good question. Am I officially changing it to 8 and 9? No, because I'm Mr. Positive. I'm going to stick with 9 and 8.
All right, so 9-8 for me, 9-8 for Vic, 7-10 for Tashan. Well, I think we are pretty positive about this defense overall. We went over on most of the defensive stats. Offensively, we'll see what happens. But we got a week into the season. I don't think the Raiders are going to make any major moves from here and then. So this is pretty much a team that's they're going to come into the season with. So we will talk to you guys next week. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple. And if you have questions, leave it on a comment on the YouTube channel or on our Apple reviews. Make sure you subscribe on Spotify. Leave any questions there. Give us 5 stars on all of it. All right, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, y'all.
Hasta la vista.